5:47, this is Greatest Hits Radio. It's confession time. And today's confession, let me just see. Well, I'm not sure to say. I'm just going to say it's anonymous at the moment, okay?
Oh, right, okay.
Simon, Matt, Nige and Susie, update as appropriate. Okay, well, okay. Simon, Matt and Sister Jackie, of course. Unforgiving Sister Jackie, who is there, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go, just checking. So, yes, it sounded a little bit odd. Anyway, here we go. So, Simon, I have been in hiding for over 50 years, and now I seek forgiveness. I'm a troubled man as I approach my twilight years. I have to confess to my lack of honesty and integrity. I fell foul of 50 years ago whilst working a second job in the evenings at a local nightclub. Being very poor in those days to make ends meet, I took this second job, serving drinks. I was a general gopher. I even got to watch some fantastic acts, so it wasn't all bad. As I spread my wings at this establishment, I progressed to the exciting job of having to man the spotlight on such famous stars as Tommy Cooper, Freddie Starr, Norman Wisdom, the Nolans, Freddie Parrot-Face Davis, Bill Haley and his Comets, Tony Christie, Anita Harris, Little and Large, plus the poor man's Morecambe and Wise, Daly and Wayne, who I have to say...
Yeah, no, don't remember them. Never mind.
Remember them, Jackie?
No clue.
Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. There were other stars whom I had never heard of, like you, but apparently they were famous, and I would not contest this, as I had the power of the spotlight. Whilst the customers were scoffing their prawn cocktails and consuming copious gallons of Blue Nun, I would gently play some soft music over the PA system. One such musical delight was a single that was so bad it was good, and eventually, after several weeks of playing it, it caught the interest of the waiters, who were busy feeding the masses. So much so that I was asked by many of them if I could get a copy of this naff old song for their respective loved ones, which I presumed was for their husbands, wives, partners, but who knows, this was a nightclub. The single in question was Do You Love Me by that musical icon, Sharif Dean, accompanied by an equally talented Evelyn de Haes, who doesn't get a credit for her breathtaking performance. You might be thinking, Sharif Dean? I've never heard of it. Anyway, this is the song, okay? Charles Aznavour thing going on here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you get the general groove, really. So being the good egg that I was, I ordered a box load of these singles. I think about 20 copies from my local record shop. Heaven knows what the store assistant thought. Why would anyone want a box load of this masterpiece? Anyway, the understanding was with the waiters and waitresses at the said nightclub that they would reimburse my outgoings without any profit, confirming that indeed I was a very, very good egg. The truth being that I would want the dosh back, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to eat that week, apart from a few prawn cocktail leftovers. So the day came when the box of goodies arrived at the record shop, which I promptly paid for out of my hard-earned pocket money, and made my way to the nightclub that evening, feeling that I would be welcomed as a hero. When I sought out my customers, alas, I couldn't find them anywhere. Where's Lynn? I said, where's Mary? Where's Doris? Where's Barry with the bad breath? Where's all the others? I was told they've all gone. There was a clear out of staff. Constructive dismissal wasn't something that had been invented at this point, but they'd all been sacked. Well, panic set in as I frantically muttered to myself, what am I supposed to do with this box load of Frisbees? I have no money, and the thought of surviving on prawn cocktails was now becoming a reality. So I decided on a cunning plan of action to get my Wonga back. I let it be known to the new, unsuspecting staff that I was the voice of this plastic marvel, and the other woman on the record was someone from my past, and I didn't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it, yeah.
I explained that due to a tonsil operation, I could also no longer perform.
Oh.
They listened to the rendering, my now adopted recording of Do You Love Me, and to my delight and amazement, I was now performing again, this time not singing, but, of course, miming. Anyway, as a result, I got rid of all but 2 of these records, signing the paper sleeve to Doris, All My Love, Sharif Dean. So, who it turns out was an Algerian singer who lived a lot in Belgium, because I looked him up. And this confession concludes, this has haunted me for all these years, and I would beg your forgiveness, apologising to Sharif and the other woman for taking their name in vain, and of course to all the Dorises who I deceived by signing the record when I shouldn't have done. Footnote, if anyone wants a copy of my recording, I can send it to them, signed, of course. And he has signed this confession, All My Love, Sharif. so he's still calling himself Sharif. So basically, his whole life has been a fake and a fraud ever since his performance at the nightclub, Sister Jackie.
I don't think that's a forgivable thing, is it? To fool people into thinking they were meeting the Sharif, you know, to perpetrate such heartbreaking fraud is fairly unforgivable in my book.
So no forgiveness there, but brother from another gutter.
Well, is this not the perfect example of one of those confessions that you'd not be able to get away with this now, because quite apart from, 7-inch singles don't exist, but you wouldn't be able to do it now because it'd just be a Google search away. You're clearly not Sharif Dean. Give me my money back. But we've got to admire Anonymous for pulling this one off and managing to sign it, because you'd have thought there would have been a picture somewhere. So well done, and we've all learned a lesson there, haven't we? I mean, clearly thought that the classic excuse, the girl goes to a different school, that's the reason why you don't know her. And yes, I know I can't sing right now, but everything else has gone fabulously. So yes, forgiven.
Sharif Dean, I hear you cry. Let's have some more Sharif. Most Wanted. If you want more, contact Jackie for a Most Wanted. Say,
don't you dare.
We would like an hour of Sharif Dean. Okay, all right. People's verdict, please. Do you forgive Sharif Dean, or whoever it is who's masquerading as Sharif? 61054. Anyway, just before the news, we had a confession from Anonymous, but someone who signed it, Sharif Dean, because many years ago, when he was working in the nightclubs, he pretended to be. Anyway, so he mimed to that. He pretended to be Sharif Dean, signed a box load of records because he'd bought them for a scam. Anyway, we had a great tale from Sharif. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
I mean, most people are forgiving tonight. Really, no one got hurt, says Alexandra. Anonymous managed to shift some records and get some street cred, and Doris was pleased to see them meet the top celeb Sharif Dean. I'd say that's a win-win. James says, forgiven. I feel like everyone in their life has given a white lie about a celebrity. When I was younger, I used to tell my friends that my grandfather was Dick Van Dyke off of Mary Poppins. They were so impressed, and that was the talk of the school for weeks. And Nigel says, reminds me of the many times I introduced myself as a pilot to impress the ladies while I really worked for the council. It worked every time.
Well, if there is a fabrication in your life and you think it would make it into a confession, then we could exchange it for a smart speaker. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Anyway, it's confession time, and today's... Right, I just need to say a few things. First of all, it's a little bit unsavoury in places.
Oh, good.
Also, slightly illegal. Also,
what?
Don't try any of the
Obviously.
activities.
Yeah, don't do it at home.
In this confession.
Love all the warning.
Yeah, it's also topical.
Oh.
For reasons you're about to find out. Ken has sent in today's confession. Father Simon, reaching the age of 51... and not having addressed these issues which have haunted me because of my wrongdoings till this point in my life is now causing me problems. I feel that as you grow older, certain things that may have appeared acceptable back in the day no longer appear acceptable. The year is 1986. I was 14 years old and a man's man, I have to tell you.
Okay.
I knew everything that there was to know and I didn't need help from anybody. I remember that 14-year-old feeling. We had recently moved into a new large family home provided by my extremely hard-working father. One summer Saturday evening, we had decided to host our first family barbecue in the new expansive back garden. It was decided that we would invite our great family friends, the Archer family, and this suited everybody because it meant that my mother and father had their two closest friends, and us 4 children had our 2 best friends as well. Well, the barbecue had started, and we were all enjoying the great food and great company. It had also been decided, by the way, it was the ideal evening for my father to crack open his first ever batch of homemade elderflower wine.
Oh, great.
Yes. This was going down an absolute storm with the adults, and so at the age of 14, I felt I was old enough and responsible enough to give it a try. I realise now that with the maturity of years, that this was an incorrect decision, and I do not encourage anyone to indulge in a similar way.
Okay.
Every time I walked past the drinks table, I would take a quick swig from the elderflower wine, and then quickly be on my way. Not long after eating my barbecue food, I remember feeling rather faint and deciding that I should go for a small lie down. I remember walking into my bedroom and somehow walking straight into the wardrobe. I then fell to the floor and proceeded to vomit everywhere.
Oh, lovely.
At this point, I simply got up off the floor and lay on my bed, fell asleep. Short while later, my mother, on coming into the house to use the toilet, came upstairs to see if I was okay and was horrified to be greeted by the vomit-covered carpet. At this point, I was interrogated as to what had happened. I pleaded complete ignorance to the vomit, stating that I had not noticed it on the floor and I had nothing to do with it. I was asked for an explanation as to how it appeared on my floor. I proceeded to tell the story about how our black Labrador, Susie, I've changed the name.
Good. We've changed the name of the dog.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay.
It must have climbed the stairs, walked into my bedroom, vomited over the carpet, and then left. I was adamant with the story. I didn't waver for a single moment. My mother commented that it was very strange and unusual that Susie appeared to have been eating hamburgers and hot dogs and consuming elderflower wine, maybe. Anyway, the problem is that my crimes did not stop there.
Oh.
My elder sister, it transpires, had been the one that told my mother of my liberal wine tasting.
Ugh.
So I felt that justice needed to be done somewhere, somehow. Whilst the rest of the family were in the garden enjoying the barbecue and the summer evening with the family friends, I proceeded to find my sister's collection of 5 various Barbie dolls. Yes. Barbie dolls in the news at the moment. Once located, I found the carving knife that my father used to carve the traditional Sunday roast. And at this point, I proceeded to cut off the many Barbies' arms, legs, and heads.
Okay.
Let's just take a turn.
I placed the dismembered Barbies back in the box and returned the box. Later that evening, my sister discovered the horrific and heinous act that had taken place to her collection of Barbies. There was an instant interrogation. Me and my 2 brothers were lined up for a strict inquisition to find out who had carried out this most horrific of murderous events. I remained extremely composed and serious throughout the interrogation, and I stuck to my story rigidly and was adamant that I played no part in the crime. This interrogation went on for at least an hour, but I kept to my story, and so at the end, it was still a family mystery. Nobody had been proven guilty for this crime. I ask for a sacrament of reconciliation, a forgiveness of my sins, therefore, full apologies. 2, in order of importance. Susie, my most adorable black Labrador. Please forgive me. I'll see you on the other side. Oh, okay. Barbies everywhere. I apologize for my horrific behavior and the traumatic experience I put you through with the carving knife. To the Archer family, purely for the embarrassment I burden you with, and lastly to my family, mum, dad, brother and sister. Sorry for everything that I put you... Okay, we got this grovelling apology thing, although it goes on for quite a few pages. Can I seek forgiveness? Oh, can I seek forgiveness? Very good.
There it is.
For these wrongdoings and lighten the load bearing down on me, says Ken. Ken and his Barbies, eh? Anyway, the Barbie film obviously opening very shortly. Sister Jackie, what do you say to Ken, please?
I'm fine with the butchering of the Barbies. Done more harm than good, in my esteemed opinion. However, I cannot forgive the pointing of the finger at poor Susie, that obviously not her real name, the dog, being blamed for the burger, hot dog, elderflower wine vomit on the carpet. That's unacceptable.
So, not forgiven. I have to say, whether you love Barbie or hate Barbie, you're going to love the film. So, I would heartily encourage everyone
Heartily
to see
recommend
it.
that.
I do, absolutely. Brother from another gutter, what to say?
I've no problem with blaming the dog. Also, I've got a bit of a problem with it. He says, I'm a man's man, and then it turns out he's lopping bits off Barbie. Not very much of a man's man there, clearly. But the real problem here is with the parents who haven't worked out that he's clearly responsible. You have to be Poirot to work this one out.
Correct. Who's
the one who's been blaming everyone else for the vomit? Turns out the sister's been dobbing him in, and he's gone after her dolls. How have you not worked that out? So for that reason, I'm going to forgive, because clearly his parents were a bit thick.
Also for not patrolling the elderflower wine.
Yes. Yeah, you should have been in charge of the wine.
Yes.
What are you doing letting your 14-year-old? Oh, yes.
Parents' fault. Okay, people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Ken, yes or not? Yes or no? On the text 61054, if you could start your message with Simon, that would be very nice. Just before the news, however, we had a confession from Ken in which 2 crimes were committed. One, too much elderflower wine, and he was too young. That was a very bad thing, which he blamed on the dog when he was then ill. And then he cut up his sister's Barbie dolls and blamed it on his brothers. So he comes out of it rather badly, I think. Let's see what the people's verdict is.
Not forgiven, says Susan. What kind of person gets a carving knife and starts chopping off limbs of Barbies? What on earth was Ken thinking? But Rachel says, I'm with Matt. Ken is forgiven. Vomiting, dismembering and lying, and the parents still didn't realise? I suspect they were on something a bit stronger than elderflower wine. And Jerry says, first time excess alcohol never ends well. Blaming the dog was a cunning plan. Barbecue became Barbie New.
Okay, that didn't quite work.
Yeah,
anyway,
it did.
if you have a confession, we would like to hear it, and if we use it, we exchange it for a smart speaker. How's that for you? Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Well, that's very good. Avoid football if you wouldn't listen.
Not again.
I don't like it when it's...
I'm steering clear of all football chats.
Thank you, very wise. Today's confession comes from James. James has already won a smart speaker before because, he says, "Son of the team, I am the lowly BBC journalist James, who used to add ridiculous facts to my CFAX pages
Oh, that was a good one.
catch out other local radio stations who would just copy my words and read them out in their news bulletins. You remember, was it the 9-stone dog?
19-stone dog.
19-stone dog and the 400 metre long tree.
Yeah.
Which would have been something else. Anyway, it's him. Well, I went on to have a very successful career at the BBC as a TV producer. Before I was ruthlessly phased out, my access pass being cancelled on my last day before I'd even left the building. Sound familiar, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, actually. Anyway, as a producer, it was my job to make cutting-edge documentaries, finding new stories with great contributors, and make waves in the news with my edgy journalism. It was high-octane stuff. There were few important rules when filming material for a documentary. Number one was never have a poo in a contributor's house.
Agreed.
It was deemed the height of bad manners.
Yes.
I'm afraid I never stuck to that rule. As I said, it was a stressful job.
Okay.
Number two, as it were, was don't get contributors drunk. This might be seen as a bribing kind of affair, or buttering them up to change or exaggerate their story. Anyway, they were the rules. Not different.
Okay.
Weeks and weeks of research had led me to film this particular story in a town which I'm just going to say is in the western half of the UK. There you go. A tale of local miscreants making life for locals miserable and criminal gangs being criminal. I had made contact with various lads, including one criminal, to meet us at this particular day of filming. The criminal was very hard to pin down and very unreliable.
Well, who'd have thought?
Which they tend to be. But he was important to my story. So I thought it was a good idea to tell him to meet us at the local working men's club. I told him to buy a sandwich and a drink and wait for us. And I called the club and told them to set up a tab and I'll play later. As this was a crucial part of my documentary, the presenter had to come and do interviews and appear like she was actually involved in the story, which she really wasn't. This presenter was extremely posh and not really from the world that I'd become immersed in. So rather typically, this very posh presenter arrived on the day of filming in a totally inappropriate blacked-out limo, immaculately dressed and 2 hours late. She was clearly out of her comfort zone in a small town where we were in the western half of the United Kingdom, a million miles from posh North London. I enjoyed her discomfort, Father Simon. Anyway, she said about interviewing locals in a hopelessly out-of-touch way. Not quite, golly, how poor are you exactly, but that kind of thing. Anyway, we were running late, so I texted the waiting criminal at the Working Men's Club, and he replied saying it was fine and we should take as long as we wanted. Alarm bells should have gone off there and then. After filming our pieces to camera, we rocked up to the Working Men's Club on this Tuesday afternoon, 3 hours late, me, the cameraman, the sound man, and the very posh presenter, to find it absolutely packed to the rafters with locals. Word had got out that the BBC was in town and that we had set up a tab behind the bar, and it was officially party time. Farmers had left their fields, mechanics had shut their garages, builders down tools, and they all headed for the club. Everyone was completely drunk. The moment they saw us, they looked in amazement at this famous BBC presenter standing in the doorway. The crowd cheered and surged forward, smelly and dirty, having come straight from work, and mobbed my very posh presenter, kissing her, hugging her, shaking her hand, getting up close, selfies, the lot. It was all good-humoured and fun, but not for my immaculately dressed presenter. She was not pleased, to say the least, but I stood back and enjoyed this hearty welcome. They all wanted to say hello, that's all. My heart sank when I found out the criminal I had arranged to meet there had texted everyone to get to the club sharpish as the BBC had set up a tab and told everyone it was free drinks all round. That was certainly not the arrangement. Needless to say, filming was cancelled. The very posh presenter jumped into the limo, sped down the M4 quicker than I could say, or pay even, the massive bar bill, which was more than £1,000.
Goodness me.
So, Simon, I wanted to say sorry for a number of things, as you might imagine. Sorry for wasting the licence fee in such a way, but what a party they all had.
Well, yes, indeed.
As you can imagine.
Okay.
And sorry to my presenter, who got covered in a lot of drool and slobber. No doubt her dry cleaning bill was as big as the bar bill. I learned a valuable lesson on that day, which was don't trust criminals, which you would have thought is a very useful life lesson.
Yeah.
James, thank you very much. I don't know if we're going to give you another smart speaker, but anyway, Sister Jackie, what do you say to James this time?
I certainly don't forgive his naivete as a reporter to set up a bar bill and a tab for a known criminal and ask him to just have a sherry and a sandwich while you waited to turn up 3 hours late. So that's a bit daft, a bit unforgivable. But I do appreciate these stories, and I hope they keep coming.
I do too. I think there's more where these came from. Brother from another guy.
I mean, actually, if we dig into this story, surely it's the presenter that's the problem here. If she'd bothered to turn up on time, then nobody would have been drinking up on the bar bill, would they? If she'd got there when she was supposed to be there, then they wouldn't have spent 3 hours running up that bill with your booze and your cigarettes and your sandwiches. So really, it's all her fault. And if she wanted to do a documentary where she's stepping on the seamier side of life, then you got it, didn't you? In bucket loads, with everyone slobbering all over your very couturied clothing.
Keep going.
I'm still going, apparently. So I'm going to forgive, obviously.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, that's enough of Matt. So,
yeah.
the people's verdict is expected. Do you forgive James, yes or no? On the text 61054. Tonight's confession from James was called Fun-Loving Criminals, and about really how on the BBC licence fee they ended up paying a bar bill for £1,000 because James shouldn't really have said to the criminal who he was making the documentary with that there was a tab at the local working men's club, which was then taken full advantage of. Anyway, it was great fun. James wants forgiveness. Does he get it? Checking in with Matt here.
So Josh in Bath says not forgiven. He should have known not to trust criminals. Of course he was going to run up a bill on the bar tab. Michelle says forgiven. Totally forgive James on this one. How was he to know that they would create a bar tab that would cost £1,000? He was only trying his best. And Joe in Swindon says forgiven. Everyone knows when the company's picking up the bar tab, the party's on.
Yes, and it certainly was. So your confession, please send it in. We would love to see it. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. If we use two of yours, I presume you get two smart speakers. Okay. Get a whole set. All your Christmas present problems will be sorted. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. For me, it's 5:48. This is Greatest Hits Radio. Checking that Sister Jackie Brambles is already with us and joined up on the line there.
Afternoon, how we doing?
Slight satellite delay. All the way to your house.
Bunker.
Yeah, to your bunker. Who's on tonight? I forget.
Andy Bell.
Andy Bell.
Andy Bell.
Start the
Yes,
show.
can't wait.
Start the show. All right, very good. So today's confession is going to take a slightly unusual turn, I believe.
Oh, really?
Comes from Phil. Father Simon, Matt, unforgiving Jackie, Sister Susie, Holly, and anyone else in the Confessional Collective. This confession I've been meaning to send you for many years, but now seems like the perfect time. Dates back to July 1990. I had a week off work, and it just so happened that a famous old roadshow was touring in my area. I'd recently started driving and had a very reliable red Ford Escort Estate that I knew would get me around the northwest eventually. The first show was Monday, and along with a work colleague, we headed off to a rainy Blackpool. At the end of the morning, me being a bit of a radio geek, decided to stick around and get a photo with the top quality DJs who kept us so wonderfully entertained. The following day was Bowness on Windermere, and I headed up alone, looking forward to another great party. As the weather was a lot better, I thought I'd stick around again to the end before driving home for another photo. By Wednesday, I'd already taken lots of photos as we got to Morecambe. It was another hot and sunny day, and the crowd were loving every minute of it. I decided that, as it was now custom, I should stick around at the end for another one. This time I was recognised by one of the presenters, which obviously delighted me immensely. I like to think I was part of the team by now. There was the Smiley Miley bloke, the security bloke, the press bloke, the engineering blokes, they were all blokes, and the Aussie pop star bloke, Craig McLaughlin.
Oh, him, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He seemed to be everywhere. And now there was me, keen enthusiastic fan in the Escort bloke. Soon came Thursday. It was my hometown of Southport. Again, it was sunny, which was a shock in itself for Southport in July. I dropped,
Surely not.
is it ancient reference here? I dropped the 35mm film in for developing before heading off to my 4th road show of the week. Again, the show was splendid, and again, with it now being a tradition, I stuck around for my now daily photo. I nodded knowingly at security bloke and press bloke, both of whom looked baffled. After the Thursday roadshow, I went and collected my double set of prints, as it was only 99p for a second set of prints.
Okay.
And I went back to the car for the short drive home. In the centre of town, just after I had set off, I was at a very slow traffic light. It was on red for about 10 minutes. It was one of those 4-way traffic lights. I looked in the rearview mirror, as careful drivers do. Couldn't believe what I saw behind me. It was a dark, I think, BMW with one of the DJs sat in the driver's seat.
What?
Without thinking, I grabbed a spare set of prints, got out of the car, ran up towards the DJ, waving my arms furiously. He looked absolutely shocked as I came towards him. He clearly thought he was about to be carjacked. I just said, "Here you are, I got a spare set." And I threw them through the window, quickly dashing back to my car before the lights changed back. I certainly never intended to shock anyone, and looking back, I know I would have been panicked if it had happened to me, and I desperately am seeking the forgiveness from the DJ in question. Probably did look like he was about to get mugged. He didn't look very pleased to see me when I went up for my final photo in Rill on the Friday, because I was there for my 5th road show.
Okay.
Actually, looking back at the photos now, the 2 DJs look less than happy to see me each day. Each day progressively getting more and more annoyed. I have no regrets, though. Non, je ne regrette rien. It was an unbelievable week following that roadshow with Jackie Brambles and a nervous-looking Simon Mayo. He was certainly nervous when I ran up to him with my carjacking face on. Please forgive me, because I was young and daft. I'm now circulating the photographs.
Yes, look at these
Jackie has
photos.
just received the photographs by WhatsApp.
Oh my goodness! Look
me.
at that!
And that's
Look at
Phil,
you're
not
looking
his
well in your vest there, Simon Mayo.
name.
Oh, look at that vest! Dear, oh
Hey?
dear.
I could get away with it
Looks
back
like
in the
Eminem.
day. We'll put some of these photos on our social media channels.
Is that you dressed up as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle? Is that you?
Anyway, Phil says, "Please forgive me, I was young and daft. I'm really happy you're both working on the same station again. My 2 favourite presenters on the radio, if that helps get forgiveness." Of course it does.
Oh, look at
I've
that!
enclosed quite a few pictures from the week. I can send them all if you do happen to want them. What do you mean? You chucked them all at me. I got a complete spare set. Why would I want any more? Anyway, Phil in Southport, not his real name. Thank you very much for all the photographs.
Oh, they're fantastic. Great memories.
Sister Jackie, do you remember that? I think you probably
I
realised
do.
when it was Blackpool followed by Bonus on Windermere, you probably thought,
yes.
I remember doing that.
I've clocked that. Oh no, great memories, wonderful time. I think I can forgive him. I'm not sure I can forgive my own cycling shorts and too much scrunching of moosed up hair. I'm not sure that's forgivable.
It's 1990.
It was the 90s.
What did I know?
Phil's right, we're looking increasingly scared as he comes up for another photograph.
Yeah.
Brother from another guy.
I mean, I'm gonna forgive because it's such a great story, and because of the photos. Obviously, the main reason I'm going to forgive is for one of the photos features Jackie with her hand up to the camera, very much in a "no press now, sunshine. I'm off to get into my BMW." Thanks to our friends at Pronto Print. So yes, definitely forgiven.
Okay, so the people's verdict, please. We'll put some of these photos up so that you can enjoy them yourselves. Do you forgive Phil, not his real name, for scaring presenters by waving his arms and approaching us when the lights were red and we were entitled to protection? Anyway, do you forgive Phil? On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. But we also had a confession just before the news from Phil about how he had scared the living daylights out of me and Jackie Brambles on a road show which he'd been following us around, and then he jumped out at the lights and threw some photographs at us. Anyway, it was all very nice, and he sent us some very lovely photographs, which we will put on our social media outlets very shortly. The people's verdict is in, and here it comes.
So everyone tonight is forgiving. Lorraine in South Shields says, the poor guy was clearly a huge fan of you both, Simon and Jackie. Phil has got to be forgiven. Penelope in Surrey, he seemed like a sweet guy who was excited to meet some top DJs. And finally, Bev in Crawley says...
Why did you put on a voice then?
Top DJs. Bev in Crawley says, totally forgive this one. The question is, though, does Simon forgive? So do you forgive?
Yes.
Obviously.
You do? Yeah, absolutely, of course. We always forgive, Matthew.
That's so true.
So that's very good. So thank you very much indeed for the people's verdict, and thank you for all the confessions, and send some more in, please, particularly if that's made you think, you know what, I have got a story. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.